Welcome back, Poggers, to another episode of the Pog State. In fact, the final one for the spring season of 2022. I'm Atlus, joined, of course, by Valdes, by Chronicler, and by Wolf, as we go through what is going to be an extraordinarily exciting final series between T1 and Gen G at Kintex with a live audience. Can you believe we've come this far? I barely can. Of course, a little bit of a brief rundown of what has happened in the LCK if you missed the playoffs. In the first match, Damwon Kia 3-0'd Fred at Brion, and it was not close even a little bit. Kwangdong Freaks then took on DRX and were successful in 5 games. It was an absolute slugfest, but not exactly the highest quality of League of Legends. We then had Kwangdong Freaks try and take on T1, who just destroyed them in the fastest series in LCK history. We then had the opposite experience, where Damwon Kia took on Gen G. They were up an extraordinary amount of gold in the 5th game, and then they lost. Gen G will now be facing T1 at Kintex. What do you think of the summary, gentlemen? It was pretty good?
Wonderful. You missed out one big detail.
What's that?
Well, that wasn't the only thing that was lost.
All right, okay. I'll officially announce it here on the Pog State as well. I did make a bet with Chronicler while Damwon Kia were up 10,000 gold at about 18 minutes in that 5th game, that if they lose, I'll shave my head. I was going to say that I eat my shoe, and to be perfectly honest, that would have been worse, because that sounds dangerous and extraordinarily bad for my health. However, shaving my hair off is going to make me feel very, very, very sad, and however, will not murder me.
He's also got nice shoes. It would have been pretty unfortunate.
Yeah, that's true. I don't have to eat these shoes though. Can I just eat any shoes?
You probably eat like canvas
ones. I could ask Connie from the LEC stats team. She made a shoe out of chocolates on her Instagram. It's actually fantastic. There you go. Yeah, but I feel like that's sort of getting out of the bet.
It's the lawyer way.
Anyway, I will eventually shave my head. I don't know when that's going to happen. It will happen though. Might be before the finals, might be before MSI, but it will happen before we go into the summer season. So there's my promise. And yeah.
Pain.
You okay, Atlas?
I'm also making you dinner, so that's nice.
Yeah.
I know you're not really excited about that right now, but
no, I think I'm focused a little bit on the negatives.
When it happens, presumably it'll be nice.
Is it a hair growth formula you're putting in?
Yeah, I was gonna say it's like it's the opposite of nair. Hell,
make sure you eat it after you shave. Then
yeah. I'm imagining like Jack and the Beanstalk. Can it be beans or like minestrone soup or something? It sounds delicious.
Can it be beans? Atlas.
It can be beans.
It can be beans.
You are a bit of a beans enthusiast. That's exactly right. But let's quickly just have a brief discussion about what happened in the playoffs games. Is there anything that stands out in your minds, gentlemen?
I'm looking at Wolf, and I can see the word gauntlet above his head already. So I think we should throw it to Wolf and his opinions about the playoffs format.
I think actually this was our worst playoffs we've had since the gauntlet was removed, with the exception of that incredible game we did have with Gen G and Damwon Kia. But we had a Damwon Kia versus Fred at Brion series, which could have been hype if Damwon Kia played as poorly as it did in that last regular season game. Spoilers, surprises to no one, they did not. They played very well. And then we had that Kwangdong Freaks versus T1 series, which was even more one-sided, if you can believe it. And I was, talking with Valdes about this, about how, like, if we had the gauntlet format, first of all, Fred at Brion wouldn't have been there, so that wouldn't have been a thing. Then we would have had Kwangdong versus DRX anyways, which was kind of a close and awesome series.
It's a good series. Yeah.
And then we would have had, of course, the next runner-up, Damwon Kia, trying to, like, put it into the order. Mm-hmm. Damwon Kia would have faced off against Kwangdong Freaks instead of going straight to the number 1 seed, T1, the 18-0. So that series probably wouldn't have been as one-sided. Then, of course, that winner would have faced Gen G, and then the winner of that would go to the finals. And I think it's a bit of a cherry pick to be like, see, this is why the gauntlet format was better. But the gauntlet format was definitely better for situations like this when we have
when
our
it's
last
top
two,
heavy. It absolutely
exactly.
works
When we had
that
our
way,
last 2 and 3 teams, arguably in our top 6 format now, being way below the 2 teams that faced off today in an awesome best of 5, and then our number 1 18-0 team, which has never happened in LCK history before. Yeah, it's going to look a little bit skewed. But I missed the gauntlet format for this playoffs because I think it would have made things a little bit more exciting at the bottom parts of things.
Yeah.
Obviously, Genji versus Damwon was an amazing series. Really delivered on everything that we wanted it to be. Actually, my unexpected awesome series was the Kwangdong DRX one because I did that one with Valdes.
Yeah, that
it
was
just
really
fun. It wasn't clean League of Legends gameplay. It was pretty messy, but that one really was up until tonight like one of the highlights for me. It was just don't really remember any specific plays, but Fate played well, which was cool. You know, and all things considered, I thought that was nice. It was a good matchup. Went all the way.
Yeah.
I costed 10 games of playoffs already.
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely we got our money's worth out of you.
Yeah.
Definitely got our money's worth out of you. Valdes, anything to add, or is everything in order?
Not really. I mean, just wish we had more close series, but
Yeah.
you can't always get it, right? We have some really strong teams against some of the middle of the pack, and sometimes that's the way it goes. But some really memorable games that I think we'll be looking at for a long time in the future, especially Game 5 of Genji versus Damwon. But, yeah.
First time in a long time we're not going to have Damwon Kia in the finals. They obviously won 3 back-to-back, and the first time we're not going to be sending them to an international event. They're not going to be going to MSI. After winning Worlds, right, where they went to every single one, got a top finish in MSI, got a top finish in Worlds 2021. It's a different roster. It's not the same one. Khan's not there, obviously. We have a new bottom duo, but it does feel weird to me that, like, when we talk about the LCK for MSI, it's not going to have Damwon's logo on it. It's not going to have Showmaker attached to it. And it might be Faker again, you know, who's going there. It might be Chovy on a completely different team with a super team behind him. So it does feel like because of this, you know, really crazy, like, destiny-changing Game 5, the course of how the LCK will be seen by the rest of the world is actually now changed.
Yeah, it's absolutely going to be a different time. And speaking of different times, beautiful segue once again you've provided me for me, Wolf. After 10 years, we are going back to Kintex, and I want to remind you guys that in 2012 there was a certain young Brendan Valdes that was on a mic. Yeah, it was you. He was on a microphone alongside a certain guy. I think his name was Double Lift.
That was the summer finals, though, not the spring one.
All right, okay, so never mind. Maybe you should go through the story then. Tell us about your experiences with Kintex.
Sure. So first, the significance, rather. 10 years later, we are going back to Kintex, and that is just really cool, right? It's just really awesome. Time is a flat circle. We go all the way around, and we're back right where we started. And I took kind of the same journey, you know, like when I came here in 2012, I had won a raffle for Azubu, and they were the sponsors of OG and the Champions at the time, and they bought a bunch of people like tickets. It was like me and 4 other people, and then from there I watched. It was like a VIP ticket to the finals, and then like a 5-day trip of Seoul and a tour around everywhere. It was really cool, and they bought us like all the hotels and stuff and the whole trip. So it was really cool to win that raffle, and I just remember watching the spring finals in 2012, and we were in the VIP seats, like right in the front. I was there watching the whole thing, and it was just really memorable as a fan at the time. Like, I was a really huge fan of League of Legends. I had watched everything leading up to that point, including all the other leagues in the other regions as well, and just to be there in Korea, in my favorite region, watching the finals was really cool. And then they needed a sub-in caster for summer. And then I cast with Double Lift at the finals. That was also really awesome.
That was, of course, the very famous best of 5 between CLGU, right, and Azubu Frost.
With the blind pick at the end, yeah.
Yeah.
It was a really awesome experience, that whole 2012, and it means a lot to me, and it's going to mean a lot to the LCK that we're like doing this full circle now back, and I was a part of kind of both. I guess I wasn't casting in spring, but still feels like it.
Yeah, absolutely iconic and historic venue for all of esports, right?
I've commentated a lot of StarCraft finals at Kintex. I've commentated several Overwatch finals.
I was there watching you cast one of the Overwatch finals for Apex. I think it was
Season 4 with Runaway and GC Busan.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really great finals. It's a venue that is kind of iconic for, even in the OGN days, for several different esports, including Brood War, I think had a few finals there. When you turn the lights down and everyone has like glow boomsticks, like a lot of the really awesome moments you've seen in OGN finals where everyone's got the sticks and it's shaking and the lights look really cool, like a lot of those scenes are from Kintex. Awesome venue because it can be kind of completely sealed off so that it's like dark inside. It's kind of a contained venue. It's not an outdoor venue. So it makes for some really awesome moments and really cool lighting, and it's so good regardless of your size of crowd. If you have a small crowd, you can get the right camera shots. If you have a big one, you can be like, damn, there's a lot of people in there.
It's huge, actually.
Yeah.
Like I remember, like the amount of floor space is just massive, but also it's like super empty. So I have no idea what to expect as far as set design or anything like that.
I've never been. I'm really excited. I've never been there. It looks cool. I've seen events held there, but it's always really, really weird to then be there for the first time. I remember the first time I stepped into a law park. That was already really disorienting. So
Hopefully you've had
it's gonna
time
be
to
the same.
recover from that, and now stepping into Kintex is going to feel a little bit easier.
It's been a nice process for you, right? You had the in-studio finals, then you had the finals where we had no audience, but we had a venue. Now you're going to get the live venue and the live audience.
Yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, no, it's going to be incredible. I'm not expecting it to necessarily be close though.
I think you need to open this with let's talk about the elephant.
All right, yes.
Do it. Serious time.
Yeah, maybe it is. Maybe it is time to actually have a bit of a discussion and a breakdown on what we think we can expect from this final, because there is certainly a big difference between what T1 did to Guangdong Freaks and what happened between Damwon Kia and Genji.
I actually think it's going to be a really good finals. I'm kind of changing my mind. I was really expecting to go in and be like 3-0. Wolf was looking at me like, what
Me
in
and Wolf exchanged
tarnation?
glances already.
I was like, hang on, which alternate dimension are you
I'll
in?
finish first.
There are several factors to that. The main thing to me that makes me believe that we'll at the very least get 4 games. I don't know if we'll hit 5 again. I don't know if it'll be as good as the semi, because that's a very high bar that was set. This semi being like it's like an hour ago that we finished.
Yeah.
Genji DK, so that's still very, very alive. The amount of mental fortitude and steel will that Genji shown here gives me more faith that this team will at least put up a fight against 2-1 than anything that I've seen of this organization in 3 years, probably. Is that going to be enough? I don't think so. I think T1 is just looming too big. But I do think that we'll get a very competitive series, because if a team is able to come back from a deficit like that and Ruler and Chovy are playing the way that they did there, then I don't think the finals is going to be any different. It just becomes a question of, is that enough to win against T1? I think no, T1 is way smarter and is not going to give a lot of the openings that Damwon does. But still, I actually think it will be a competitive series. Previously today, I was like, nah, it's not happening. But I have a little more hope that at least it'll be fun.
3-1.
3-1, yeah. 3-2 maybe.
Okay. Just,
Yeah. Well,
just wanted to make it clear,
yeah, 'cause
whether
my-
it was 3-1 or 3-2.
No, because well, like somewhere in between. My expectations were 3-0, like for basically up until tonight. And also, this is like an hour ago, and I'm still very hyped up. So maybe I'm just getting swept away.
True.
That's fine as well. I'll take
Very
that.
true. Predictions are oftentimes, just added bonus fun for for everyone.
You know my take. on it.
Yeah. I think on the last Pog State episode, I actually said that T1 wouldn't drop a game throughout the entire playoffs.
I think you did. I'm pretty sure you did.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to stick with that. I think that 3-0 is absolutely going to happen. I think that T1 are far and away the best team. Like, it's not even close. I think that Damwon Kia and Genji are really strong, but they're also really close in terms of their skill level, especially because Damwon, I think, leveled up a little bit going into playoffs. But I think T1 are just the next level. Like,
It's reasonable.
I don't really, we can jump into that a little bit more. But yeah.
I think so too. I still think I haven't put my official prediction across the table yet, but I personally am thinking it's going to be a 3-0 for T1 despite what was a lot of resilience, and I think that's the really important thing that the Mao brings up. Not only in that 5th and final game where they were playing 4v5 with Peanut out of the game, and also the way they changed their drafts as the series went on, which I thought was really incredible. The Corki game for Chovy, I thought was the best draft they had. There were really nice reactions in that draft. They really changed the pace of how things were looking. And then they just let Doran get dove on the top side. That was a really fantastic change-up for Genji. And I think you're going to need a lot of kind of forward thinking like that from Score in a best-of-5 against T1. And I do think that maybe even if it is a 3-0, 1 or 2 of the games are fairly close until they aren't, right? When T1 normally has like a 5,000 gold lead at 20 minutes. At worst case scenario, maybe it's a closer game at 20. We have like a 45-minute game where T1 actually is pushed to make tough calls. That's the one weak point that T1 might have that we don't know about yet. In a real best of 5, like in a real high-pressure best of 5, if they get into a 30 or 35-minute game where they're behind by 1,000 gold or 2,000 gold or dead even and don't have turret leads or vision leads, in that high-pressure situation against a top team, a team they haven't faced at full strength until this finals, that's when I get worried about what could happen to T1. Like, could they mess that part of the game up? Because we haven't seen that really, basically all season long, outside of some regular season games where like Faker played mid Kaisa and with some happy gaming. But like in a serious, real game where like the pressure is high and you're not ahead, like how does T1 handle that? We don't know yet.
Well, my problem is that now that you mention that, I'm like, wait, we did see that at Worlds, and they were one game away from making the finals.
Yeah.
And they had Kana, who is worse than Zeus, so maybe I should readjust.
I was about to say the same thing.
You know what most likely is going to happen is that it's similar to what we had for summer last year, where it was very clearly that one team was better, but I think Gen G is good enough to get a game. Maybe that's the more reasonable.
I mean,
take.
that sort of happened today as well, right? Like, it's super crazy that Damwon looked like they were going to take the series because the whole time, Gen G kind of looked individually better.
They were.
Like, just sort of everywhere. And Damwon managed to steal 2 out of 3 of the 2 out of 5 of the games, and almost stole the last one. Ripped my hair. I'm still upset. But it's interesting because listening to Wolf, I'm like, we kind of watched Damwon do a similar thing to Gen G in game 1 of that series, right? And if they T1 are just way better at these sort of tempo games where you're able to create gold leads kind of out of nothing. And Gen G already demonstrated that they're not very good at dealing with that as the game goes on, making sure that they can make the better late game decisions in order to get back into games like that. So I'm certainly 3-0 T1 all the way. I think there's absolutely no chance that Gen G even takes a game, but I want there to be a chance.
First Herald, by the way, like on that note, we saw the stat. First Herald is 10th for Gen G. Like they are the worst team at securing First Herald in the entire LCK. It's the opposite for T1. They take it almost every time, and even when they don't take it, they'll take like a whole turret, 2 plates minimum, bottom side.
But that means
it's a mismatch for Gen G, like in a lot of ways, I think.
Or maybe it's the perfect matchup for Gen G because they won't just like conga line into T1 through the choke point and die over and over again like Kwangdong Freaks.
Games.
Yeah.
Oh no!
Because that was like a lot of their decisions were extraordinarily poor when facing the T1 tempo plays, but
Valdez and I are going to get PTSD from if
I apologize.
We had to cast that one.
We're trying to look forward as much as possible, but in order to see what might potentially happen, we need to address what did happen.
Yeah,
and I think that Gen G won't make the same mistakes as Kwangdong Freaks, but I also think that T1 will be able to take way more and create leads that they won't then throw away.
Yeah. I mean, like, even in the regular season, and yes, there were subs, and it wasn't, like, the full roster of Gen G. Like, T1 did make some of those games look pretty easy against Gen G, and the thing about T1 that makes them actually feel, again, inevitable, this word that we always use, is that you might feel like you're getting a lead, but actually you're losing something. Like, T1 are just too good at macro, and also they never lose any lanes, it feels like. Or even if they do, they're getting a trade in the bottom lane, even if top lane is losing. Like even from what we saw today out of the Damwon Kia versus Gen G series, where they were like diving Doran over and over and over again. Like Damwon Kia were only getting that. They weren't like getting much else. T1 is going to play that entirely differently. Like they'll get a lead up there, and then they'll use that to get something else and understand that, okay, we really need to accelerate this against the Corki and the Ezreal and eventually just win the game. Like for me, it just feels like every situation that T1 has been in, they've been able to solve a way out of it. And like that's part of the reason why I feel like they're just on another tier. It's like, I think their understanding of the game is so incredible, and also their teamwork and decision-making is so lightning quick that like, it's part of the reason why Kwangdong Freaks had so much trouble with them. It's like, oh, we need to fight over this Rift Herald. We are also grouping up for this, and we've made a decision to fight for it, but T1 are there already. They're already got it down to half health. They're the second they turn,
The
all
flank ward is
five all 5 members are in and killing somebody. And it's like no team is really as fast as them when it comes to making decisions like that. And I think that's part of it's just like this next level of it's almost like a sixth sense of League of Legends. I don't know. Makes me excited.
We've seen a lot of comebacks between Damwon Kia and Gen.G. Like, remember the first series that they played against each other? Like, where...
PTSD.
like, Damwon Kia and Gen.G, the first series, which was the epic one with the Lehens singed and all that stuff. In Game 1, Damwon Kia were playing a Twisted Fate composition, and they fell pretty far behind, and they were able to win off of their team fighting later on. We've seen so many moments where Gen.G is just better at laning, better at early game in just literally lanes. Like, I think it was you, Atlus, who mentioned this earlier. Like, their mechanical plays are great. Like, Gen.G did seem like the better mechanical team. Like, individually, each one of those 5 players outside the jungle looked like, I'm better than you in lane. I'm better than you in the 2v2 bottom. I'm better than you in the soul lane. Until Doran got tilted. But then I had to put the asterisk there.
Mm-hmm.
But then, like, their macro plays were so poor when they had leads from lanes that Damwon Kia had a lot of comebacks in this best of 5, even when they weren't able to cross the finish line. And that's what I'm scared about is if you can get even a lead against T1, can you outplay them macro-wise? I think the answer is a pretty resounding no. And can you get ahead in the laning phase? I guess the other question.
I think that a lot of the points that you guys make are accurate, but I firmly believe that Gen.G is the only team in the LCK that's not going to lose every lane by default. And I do think that a lot of the early game advantage that we see from T1 is the fact that they have permanent prio in every single lane always, regardless of matchup effectively, because Guma Carrier wins every lane, doesn't matter what the matchup is. The only exception being Faker, because that's not really how mid lane works, but both top and bot are basically always shoved in fully. I don't think that they're going to be able to do that as consistently against Gen.G. And again, I want to reiterate that I don't expect Gen.G to actually be able to match, but the fact that T1 is not going to be able to permanently outtrade because they don't have perma prio should at the very least lead to one of the games being or having Gen.G in a position where they're far enough ahead or even that they can at least try to trade. Is that going to be enough? It's really hard, and I do really think that the fact that we have no real comparison between these two teams and how these lanes actually play out makes it really hard to accurately predict, because especially what we saw again from Gen.G in the series where the whole team is there, is that every single player can be a win condition. We saw in the best of 5 that Doran had hard carry games, Peanut had hard carry games, Chovy and Ruler were like pretty absurdly good. And Lehens is the only one that like very clearly falls behind his direct opponent. So is T1 going to drop the ball on maybe one of those games? That would be my expectation. I mean, I might also be wrong, and they might just win every lane, and they might just... Because if the laning phase doesn't come through for Gen.G, then there's nothing. Because that's where they're stronger. That's the only thing. Like, win lane, win game. If that doesn't work out for them, they're not going to... Because their shot calling is worse. Their decision-making, I think what Valdes pointed out, is definitely the biggest part that makes T1 so insanely oppressive to play against, where... even if you do have a lead, which again I think in the Gen.G series might happen, they're just gonna out macro you. They're gonna like make an objective call, like the Baron call that Damwon Kia made today. T1 does that like 3 times probably, and better, right? But I do think that T1 often against a lot of worse teams relies on the fact that they just auto in every lane. And against Gen.G, I don't think they'll be able to do that specifically with the form that Chovy and Ruler in particular are in right now.
I wanted to... I feel like Ruler played a really great series, but I didn't exactly feel like Ruler and the Hens were dominating a lot of the bottom lane, and that was up against Duckdom and Kellen, and I think that Guma and Keria have kind of proven that they are pretty... they're like a pretty far step. Like, that might be the best bottom lane in the world, I think you said, like, on the cast a couple days ago.
I don't think that's a stretch.
I just don't really see them ever... winning lane against that bottom lane specifically. Like, I could definitely see like Faker getting ganked or like them ganging up on Zeus, but even then it's like Zeus is one of the best weak sides. You know, like if he's gonna get ganged up on, he's gonna be playing some kind of weak side carry, and talking about like the meta as well, you know, if we get like a Gragas or even a Jace, then he won't be weak side. Like I don't really see him losing that either. So I'm just kind of curious, like what meta or like what kind of compositions you would see Genji kind of, you know.
Chovy's not going to get Ahri, I could tell you that.
Being able to
I don't
take
think that's
some
going to
of the-
happen. No Ahri games
Yeah.
for Chovy. Don't think that's on the cards.
But they don't need to ban it, right? If T1's on blue side, they just pick the Aria, and I think Faker has looked better than Chovy on the pick, personally.
Faker's been the best. Yeah.
I think he's just been absolutely absurd.
Don't forget about power pick Tom Kench.
That's true. I mean, power pick, first pick, Tom Kench is
Yeah.
100% coming in for
Gotta
the
make
hard
sure you
engage.
take care of that.
Because you need the hard engage. You need the ultra hard engage support that is the catfish on the bottom side of the map. Just absurd. It bothers me kind of just how good Carrier is. For my 2 cents, it's been interesting, like listening to what you guys are talking about, because I'm reminded of some of the like extraordinarily bloodthirsty games that T1 have had as well. And you're talking about like how T1 have all of this control, how they're able to win lanes and things like this, but they also like sometimes come down to the level of their opposition. They just scrap better than you anyway. Like their coordination in the 3v3s, in the like the 2v2s that you find around the map as well when they're like just vying for position. Like they've been in the highest kill games that we've had this season, right? Like T1 are not just like strangling you and like need that level of control. And the reason why I bring this up is that a lot of the teams that have crumbled have relied upon like having extremely powerful macro and played around having tempo advantages throughout the entire game. But T1 have like almost what looks like given away tempo advantages for free and then just stabilize their ability to like take control back again of a game.
Limit test.
Yeah, and then just like win by default because they're just better. It's been happening all season.
They're a team that can either drown you in an ocean or like burn you, leave you out to dry in the desert. You know, like in terms of the way they play, like they can play those scrappy games. It can be a crazy high kill game where they're twice the kills of you. They can have a 10-5 kill game at 15 minutes, but they're the 10. They're not the 5. But they can also be in a 15-minute game up 6,000 gold with 1 kill in the game. And like that's what I mean. Like they can drown you in the ocean, or they can like leave you out to dry, like you die of thirst because they just are out macroing you. And they have extremely wide champion pools. They haven't even shown us anything new because they won their series so decisively against Guangdong Freaks. They like emulated the Canyon Nocturne and even did it better than he did. And it's like it's not a pocket pick. That's not a weird strategy. It's like something that's already been shown. It's already out there, and like they don't even necessarily have to play it in the finals. That's the scary part. Whereas in this series with Genji and Damwon Kia, like both of those teams, regardless of who ended up winning that game 5, and obviously Genji did, had to, I think, show us what they didn't show us like any crazy picks per se. Like we didn't see some funky showmaker mid pick that we've never seen before.
Saw the Shen.
We saw the Shen.
But I mean, it's Lehens, so it's like not actually surprising
but like
at all.
That's a good example
Yeah,
of something
yeah.
that we did see. We also saw a lot of Ziggs priority, right? That I think T1 can now punish. We also saw Doran was quite exposed, so yeah.
I think it's actually like I think it's interesting you bring that up because I think that Damwon had to show way more in that series and they lost.
That's a
like
good
I
point,
think
yeah.
I think Damwon with their like extreme Nidalee strategy in the 5th game, like if that had have worked like it should have, then they'd be now heading into the final against T1 having already shown that trump card that was used in like the most pressure that they had in that series. Dokdam as well, heavily reliant on the Ziggs because he just wanted to skip laning against Ruler. I think that like Ruler and Lehens almost weren't allowed to play the game because that bot lane was like it wasn't even a factor. It was just attempted to be neutralized like the whole time. And like we just saw like
really good
Trinity
point.
Force Ezreal just like cruise towards a late game where it's like, oh, Chovy, do you have to kill everyone? I want to be the hard carry like usual, you know?
It says a lot as well that what I'm arguing is also not that Genji's going to win the series because I'm not. It's like no guys, they can.
I
win
think
one
they
day.
can get they can take a Herald one time.
That says a lot about the context because there's just no way that any of us can with what we've seen thus far reasonably expect Genji to win more than that, right? Like the more I think about it, the 3-1 might already be like.
Yeah. And we just want to
I know about
reiterate
that.
as well, we also believe that Genji is going to be the best possible matchup that we could send from the rest of the LCK. I think that everyone
Genji's
kind of
good.
thinks that Genji should have been in the final against T1. This is the outcome that we kind of wanted.
I agree. also get the first time that the actual lineups fight.
Yeah,
is
right,
We
like,
talked about that as well.
we
that's just
deserve
really
that.
Cool.
We absolutely deserve that.
And even then, I'm still feeling like I'm grasping at straws, trying to argue they can win
What is
a
it?
game.
What is it with the LCK being a one-team region?
Oh man,
You know, Genji wouldn't do. Oh no, would they do well, guys, in another region? I don't think they will.
Oh no.
The Genji, right? They suck.
Yeah.
That's why
Malrong's doing pretty
Well,
well.
that's why I lost.
I was going to say, like, isn't
My
Rich
favorite
doing
song
all
there.
right as
Someone-
well? Like,
Don't bring up Summit. He
Yeah.
he was capped by Sunday, which I guess still works for.
yeah, I mean, like,
That's
yeah.
still going,
Which
that's still
region did
going
he
back
come
a
from
little
again?
bit further? Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember Impact?
But yeah, that's
Remember
that really says the most to me about really what a Herculean effort is gonna have to come out for Genji to again even contest in a game.
Yeah.
Like they're going into finals like that is feeling like what 2020 Dom1, which makes sense that comparison because that's the last time we had a team that was this one-sidedly
Yeah.
dominant.
No, it's absolutely insane. And I think it's really cool having measuring sticks in like every region as well, especially like just coming straight out of last year, right? Like we send Rich over to the LPL just to measure how good they are, and he's doing pretty well. One could say he's kind of doing all right.
They also have Rookie. So
Any
that helps
Scout or
as well.
Viper fans?
Rookie
in the,
also went in
the chat?
2014, all right? So, like, I mean, that's a bit of time ago, but that's fine. You've got, of course, Summit that goes over to NNA and then Malrung that goes over to the LEC. I just think it's really cool that we just like get all of all these measuring moments. Malrung was my favorite AD carry last year.
Bay is playing in the PCS, if I remember correctly. I think he's playing for PSG.
Oh, okay.
And obviously LGL, there's a lot of LCK players as well.
That's true.
UCal,
Remember Arya?
Well, we don't mention UCal. or we don't mention UCal.
Yeah, don't mention
We
Arya
don't mention,
either. Like, what
we
are you
don't mention
doing?
Too
UCal. We don't mention Arya. We don't mention Gory. Those are...
Scout and Viper. It's not
Oh,
last
yeah.
year, but you
But,
know
like, I
they
think-
did all
but I
right.
think
Yeah, they're pretty good.
I think for Scout and Rookie, like at this point, they're just LPL players, right?
I know. It's like talking
And-
about Doinby, right?
Yeah,
and like,
exactly.
I think
You
it's
can't-
okay to forget that he's Korean
for
because
Vi-
he's been in the OPL
But
for so long.
For Viper, obviously still. Can you imagine if we get EDG against Genji at Worlds at the end of the year, like Viper versus Chovy and Doran?
Oh my god. Yes.
I know.
Oh.
And my hands.
Wait, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah, there's
oh
actually
my god, I didn't
They
even.
might not
it's
make
like the
Worlds.
full
You never
Griffin.
know.
We need the full Griffin reunion. We need Tarzan to get over there. Oh man, it
That's
would just
like a
be
bluff.
it would actually be really exciting.
Can we just take a bit of a segue and talk about my man Hoya for a second?
Hell yeah, you
Can we
can.
actually talk about this?
Small Hoya moment.
Like this
I
could
like
even
it.
be, if you guys even want, we could like edit this back
like,
to the playoffs conversation. You know, I'll leave that up to the editors, aka Ian. But
I like
I
it.
need a big
Good
nope.
shout.
I wanted to talk about how even though Hoya had a terrible start to the season, he was integral in Dom1's potential win tonight because when we saw the Malphite pick come out, it wasn't an incorrect pick by any means. Well, it wasn't really played very confidently by Bernal.
Oh, it was not played well.
He walked like into fight, so he was like considering ulting, and then was just charmed, stunned, blown up, couldn't ult. Hoya comes in, he pulls out the Camille, felt Morgan-esque. I like that
Yeah.
you guys brought that up on the cast. And then he was never afraid. He was never nervous. He never hesitated. And I think that was just a really cool moment to illustrate how having this guy who has a lot more experience than Birdall on a bench. I think a lot of fans, when they saw it, they were like, oh, man, this series is over. When they saw the Hoya sub coming in, and I think it just goes to show that if you're on a top team like this, even if you're on the bench and you're screaming and you're screaming and screaming, you're learning, you're sitting behind this player, you know, what their form looked like at the beginning when they were subbed out and how they could look at the end. Like, you can actually have this, like, almost hyperbolic time chamber-esque performance. Didn't happen to Effort this season, but, you know.
Yeah, sadly.
I just wanted to give a shout-out to Hoya, and I wonder after watching tonight, like, who will start in summer for Dom1 Kia? Like, that was a masterclass performance on one champion, but we'll see.
I think the Hoya shout-out is very justified, but also Canyon went top like 5 times, which
Yeah.
it's really interesting because I love the point you make about the experience. What it showed was that Birdle clearly was not ready to be in that position because the hesitation that you point out is really big, especially on a champion like Malphite where you can't really hesitate. Like, you have your R button, you use it, and then
Be like
you have to
Keith.
It's
accept.
so binary.
Yes, no, it is, and we saw a lot of situations where the top fight is the most typical one, where he doesn't want to lose the game for his team, so he ults away, as opposed to like ulting to try and set up for the rest of his team. That's really a core piece of what makes Birdle a very inexperienced and still work in progress player. I actually really like the question because I can see why they would start him again in summer when it's the start of the split and there's no pressure and they get another full split to develop him, or whether you would say, yeah, Hoya's had such a good finals, but then the question is like, where does Hoya end up?
Actually, I felt like
It's interesting.
the whole of Damwon would have changed if they just kept Beryl. That's what I think. Because then Beryl just micromanages the Rock and just goes, Rock, go here.
Yeah.
You know, he's like basically just playing chess at that point. Like, honestly, that's what you're doing. You're moving a puzzle piece. Like,
It's true.
You're
like,
just moving it really fast and it's unstoppable and
if
force
somebody,
like.
if
woo.
somebody's confident enough to tell Birdall, like, you ult in, you
Yeah.
do not go
Yeah,
out,
yeah, like ping,
then
ping,
I
ping,
think
like
that,
go. Like
that specific moment you talk about where he actually ulted away on the top side of the map, like,
I get it.
if
but it was-
Beryl's
it was
there,
wrong.
he's
It
like,
was wrong.
put
Yeah.
your face into enemy team now,
Yeah.
and then they go, you know. And like they probably get wiped, right? But it'd be better than
It'd be the
what
right-
happened.
It'd be the right decision.
Yeah.
And like there were more. Canyon also had a really bad Viego game. It's like it's not.
I think
specifically
Kellen
about the
just
game
had like a really rough series
as well.
I think he
Kellen was also
he
not
struggled.
great.
well, I opened this can of worms. I'm gonna like put it back. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
positive,
yeah.
so doesn't
It was a
double.
good- no,
But, like,
it
I
was-
just
it
wanted
was-
to- I
it
just,
was
like,
good.
I like opened
Okay.
it up. I'm like, let's talk about that. And then we put it away now.
like
We'll
it.
talk about it for summer.
Okay, let's put that one away. Let's focus back on T1 versus Genji and talk about like what some of the picks that we're looking for between these two teams are going to be, and sort of if Genji is going to win games, how are they going to do it, and what is the draft going to look like for them? Like, are there certain picks that they're going to be forced to ban away, and what is going to be the most important?
The two most important picks, maybe go for free, is I think Jace, Ari, and Lee. Because Owner is not allowed to play Lee, Faker's not allowed to play Ari, and Zeus can't play Jace. Or he
can, but he's
you
not
know what I
allowed
mean.
to. Yeah, if you're Genji, you're
and
not
he does,
allowed
it's a
to
problem.
let him.
And
yes.
if he does, it's a problem. And that doesn't take into account any of these super broken champions that kind of need to be banned. But I can see things like the TF slip through, because I don't think TF is that insanely strong at the moment. I think Ryze can make it through the draft as well, because T1 has clearly shown that those global champions have kind of fallen by the wayside in the favor of more playmaking. And then it becomes a question of, are we actually going to ever see Wukong exist, right? Are we going to see Doran pilot the Malphite better? Because I still think that even with what Birdle showed, that we have seen this pick actually work out into the Jace.
Bertel had done it himself
More
already.
Ornn.
Yeah. Or
More Ornn.
You're gonna see more
okay,
Ornn.
more Ornn.
I think Doran realized that Ornn is like, it's impossible to lose on Ornn. He's like, we were down forever, and I spent this whole series
you can
dying,
get
and
kills
then
against Jace.
and then I just played Ornn, and it was fine. His flash when he was getting dove on the top side of the
very
map
good.
It was perfect.
Oh, chef's kiss. It
really
was
good.
beautiful.
So that's the issue. Is there's so many prerequisites. If
So you
can-
bait the Jace? Is that what you do? And then like if you're on red side,
Yeah,
then you
the-
get
the-
to ban
well,
Zeri.
one-
Thank goodness.
The one edge that Genji I think has is that T1 is 100% going to open if you give them the opportunities with those champions, like 100%.
Yeah.
So the
At least
one,
in the first few games.
in the
I think
yeah,
that
so
there
because
will be some
T1's going to be
development,
going to have
but-
side. Yeah, no, I mean of course, but
If
like
they
in
lose.
in game number one, T1's going to have side selection, or I assume they choose blue side, and you know what they're going to lock in first. If you leave any of, I mean, it might
Lee
be a
Sin.
question of. Like, is it going to be Lee or Jace first pick? It previously has been Jace, but they might swap that up.
And I think if you
But-
leave all of them open, like, they're going to get the one they want, and that doesn't work. Like, you can't just be like,
No.
well, I'll take the other
Well,
two.
But if they're on blue side, then you can't even ban those things
No.
because you have to ban the worst things.
Well, I know, but like the one edge that Genji has in this series is that T1 I think is going to draft predictable because they've never been punished for picking these champions at all. Is that going to be enough? No, maybe. I'd say no. But like I could see Genji come in the first game with a very specific plan into what will be, I think, a predictable T1. Now, if T1 is unpredictable, which they can be, which we know because everyone has a champion ocean, then I see no angles. Yeah.
I feel like the best way for Genji to draft, and I think it might not be enough to give that caveat, but I think the best way for them to draft into champions like this Jace is to just do exactly what we saw in the Genji series or the Damwon Kia series, and put Doran on weak side champion, preferably the Ornn. Gragas, okay,
yeah.
fine. And then play Corki, play Ezreal, play slow, play late game, play for range. You're not going to beat T1 in the early macro game. You're just going to have to sit it out. You're just going to have to wait, and you're probably going to have to be behind. It's just how it's going to be. But then maybe you're going to hit those rockets in the late game. Maybe you're going to have that really cool package engage from Chovy. Maybe you're going to have like really awesome Ezreal play from Ruler like we've seen in the past. Got to be careful of that Gumayusi Varus pick coming out, in that 2v2 because he'll pull it out. But I think that's my angle for Gen G. We've seen it before. It's really good. They're very good at it. T1 played it against them, actually. Faker played Corki against them in that series where we did have the substitute. But I think that is a lot of what we're going to see on red side from Gen G is trying to draft range, trying to draft patient, slow, sit back and wait, try to play the late game. Hope that they go there not 6,000, 7,000 gold behind.
I like it more on blue side, though, when you're able to get the power picks. I think on red side, they should try to draft a punish draft, right? Because that's like the one benefit that you get. And if you just give over and pick things like Corki without, I guess you depending on what T1 draft, but you can maybe get some counters, but it's really hard because I'm hearing that and like, can you really afford to give T1 leads? Because then they push the leads too far. But then you argue the opposite side and say they go for a really lane dominant strategy where they get maybe a Gragas or a Jace and they get the Ahri or Vex or LeBlanc themselves, like a strong aggressive pick, bolstered by Viego or something. Like, is Gen G really going to be good enough to like get the leads? I think they will. That's fine. But then hold them and actually play them out.
I'm watching your brain melt, Fred. That's what's happening.
It's hard. It's difficult to find an angle.
Yeah, there's you always run into walls. It's like
Yeah.
a maze, but there's no actual answer.
I think we might see this series draft a little bit like we saw the series that we just saw draft, where Damwon Kia are like pulling out all the stops and like doing some of this crazy stuff against Gen G, who are a little bit more balanced and don't really show like crazy stuff. I think that Damwon pulling out wildly different drafts, like with Vernact in Italy and stuff like that, might be what Gen G does against T1. Like try to get ahead of them and surprise them.
Yeah.
Like leave the Jace open and then pick Wukong for the first time in a while and say like, let's see if you can win lane, and like leave you up there, try to win lane, and then we'll win elsewhere. And like maybe that's how they get an edge in the early game. Or play a Renekton in Italy, or play like a crazy Lehens pick where we see all the time Kerry is playing like Nautilus and Tom Kench every single game. Like play something that can punish that, like an Enchanter support, really try to shut down the lane, or play some kind of wonky melee support.
Melee support.
Yeah, something like that, or maybe like a Singed comes down and like takes the game.
It's so funny because you sound like a used car salesman right now or something. No, we got plenty of those Enchanter supports. Like, no, don't worry about it.
Like
That's only $25K.
That's part of the experience, of
I don't know, guys.
We're trying to argue for the
doomed.
one
We're
win.
doomed to a one-sided finals, I think.
Yeah, it's like the more you think about it, the more you realize you're getting sucked into the whirlpool of 3-0.
Remember when I was like, 3-2? I'm like, 3-1? And by the end of the week, it's probably going to be 3-0 for me as well.
Yeah.
But I think it's realistic that, if they are going to win, they have to do something like that, because
Cheese them good.
I think in a straight-up game, you're just going to lose. Like, I don't think you're gonna get away with like Doran dying 6 times and winning. Like I don't think that's gonna happen. Like I think T1
I also don't
just,
think. Yeah.
They'll just smash you. Like they'll take that lane and then they'll take it to the mid and then to the bot. And
They're
then
2 levels
get
down
too far
rise.
ahead.
Definitely
Yeah.
not going to try to attack a Corki on
That's
the bottom lane.
Yeah, exactly. Like stuff like that isn't gonna happen. They know how to take their leads too well. So I think you need to try to be proactive in the draft and proactive in the game to try to take some leads somewhere and try to get into their heads and win some games.
T1, as good as they have been, have also had a couple of happy games. So
Yeah.
maybe they get like happy a little bit too much, and then Ruler can clutch it out.
Like
That's what
Damwon
happened
last
against-
year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Against T1.
No, they did.
the
They
Renekton
drafted-
Kassadin.
Yeah, they drafted Kassadin for no reason.
Max's
and then-
favorite draft.
and
That
then-
was probably one of my favorite desks when I was alongside Nemesis and and we just absolutely obliterated that draft, and it just felt fantastic. I remember
justifiably so.
asking Nemesis, I'm like, "What did you think of the draft?" And he's like, "Shit," something like that. That's my terrible Nemesis accent. I
just remember
apologize.
also like we all ran into each other after that game because it was a really long segment in game, and we were all like in the bathroom at the same time. We were all just like, what the hell was that? Like, we were all just like, looking at each other like, yeah, that happened. I don't know anything that happened in this series now.
Yeah.
I can see that happen. I don't think that's unlikely. T1 have been having a habit of getting a little bit ahead of themselves, and like in those.
But that was in the regular season, and we
Well,
saw
but-
against Kwangdong there was none of that.
No, I know, but that was.
There wasn't any
Kwangdong.
mid-Kaisa in that
True,
one.
But that was Kwangdong, and again, T1 have coasted by in some of those situations on the fact that they're way better mechanically, and that should not happen.
There
against
was
Damwon.
actually, there were a couple of happy moments, but just none of them actually meant that T1 lost the game.
in Kwangdong.
Yeah, in the
well,
series.
yeah, but again, it's Kwangdong.
Yeah, true.
Who actually matches T1 mechanically? Maybe Teddy on a really good day, but I don't even think so. Keen,
Keen, yeah,
Yeah.
Keen.
and that's it.
Keen.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Keen does, yeah.
Gen G has like 3 players, so that's a little bit more well balanced, I think.
Yeah, and I think mechanically, like, Gen G do have Chovy, who has probably the best laning phase in the world. Like,
I'd
the
say so,
guy
yeah.
is
I
pretty
think it's
ridiculous,
reasonable statement.
and also is in pretty good form right now. I just, like, T1 has the best neutralizing mid laner in the world. Like, and, he's proven that.
Will
over
we
a
see
few years.
anything outside of 3 different mid picks of Ari, LeBlanc, and Vex? Because
Hey.
these 2 players, like, they
Hey,
play that every game.
Rise exists.
Oh,
Corki,
sorry,
Yeah,
forgot about
TF.
him.
I think TF will be
Forky,
getting through a lot.
Twisted
I,
Fate.
yeah, like not get picked.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
There
Yeah.
could be-
I don't
there
think
could be
Chovy
a-
wants to pick it, and I think Faker can if he wants to.
I feel like
don't think
Faker
they
just
will.
plays like LeBlanc Ari every game though.
Yeah,
Sometimes
he
Rise.
gets the opportunity to often.
So then, like, Chovy's Vex is amazing, so he's just gonna like play Vex as a neutralizer, and then they'll like switch
That's it.
sides, and then
Yeah.
yeah.
No,
one
that's-
guy will get Ari,
I
and the other
agree.
guy will play Vex, and it'll be like,
we will see. I think we will see one Victor /Azir game in that best of 5. I think there will definitely be one.
That's
Not a
that's a
Vic-
hot
not a
take.
Victor
No, no,
versus
no,
Azir.
I-
I just mean like one of those
I can-
champions will be seen at
I
least
can see
once.
it when it's like 2-1 or 2-0, and they're like the draft strategy is just ban 5 mids. Like,
Play Victor.
Yeah.
All right, okay, so we were going to do predictions, but doing predictions for this series is dumb because it's T1 3-0, right? And Mal might say 3-1, but he'll change his mind to 3-0
He's just
before we get
kidding.
to the game anyway. So let's not do that. Let's do our predictions of what are going to be the most interesting champion matchups that we'll see. What's like, as far as like the...
No, don't go there.
What do
That's
you
a-
think
that's
the
not- that's not-
crazy
that's not-
matchup's going to
no,
be?
No, that's not going to be good. It's gonna
Like
be
Echo
really
versus
boring.
Elise in the
No,
bottom
it's
lane.
not going to happen.
Jace
It's-
versus Wukong.
It's getting my hope up.
Yeah, no, we're allowed to have hope here. This is a
Okay.
safe hope space.
This is
I'm hoping
Chronicler's
that my hair will
comfort zone.
miraculously not have
The
to
hope
leave.
zone.
We're in the hope zone though. So Chronicler,
That is
safe
where-
space.
that
Give me
is
the
where-
prediction.
All right, I'll just tell you right now. I'm hoping that we don't see any mid Kaisa. I don't want any mid Kaisa in my finals. I don't want to have to cast that. I don't want to look at that
What
anymore.
about
I
AD
don't wanna
carry
talk about-
Kaisa?
AP Kaisa bot, that's fine. That's okay. But mid lane, please, Faker, don't do it to me. Even if it wins, I'm going to be like frustrated the whole time and freaking out and talking about all the weaknesses that maybe Gen G didn't exploit and Faker still won and my solo queue games are ruined forever.
Oh, yeah, no, that's horrible.
That's my hot take is we're not going to see it, and it might seem like it's not a hot take, but I didn't think that Faker should have played it in the series he did, but he did anyways, and to mix results. So no Kaisa mid, please.
I actually think it's going to be a pretty consistent, if they want to go for a 2-spike comp into Ari specifically. I don't think you can play it into LeBlanc. You can't play it into things like Vex, but into Ari, I think we can
Don't
see it.
explain why mid Kaisa could be a thing.
Well, I mean,
I said no.
I know. I
Do you know what I want to see? Do you know what I actually just want to see Gumushi play Draven?
yes.
That's what I want.
That's my
that is the
dream. That's
main
the
thing
dream.
that I want.
Okay, hear me out.
Game 3.
Hear me out.
Yeah. Oh
Hear me out.
god.
Ruler picks Kalista.
Oh, and he gets Dravened in the face.
He gets Draven in the face.
All right, I thought.
But it's not
this
gonna-
doesn't sound
it's-
like a
well,
fan.
no,
base.
Sorry, this is the hope. This is the hope zone,
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah,
Hey,
like,
listen,
we're in the hope
I was
zone.
told
Get your
this was
hate
a
out of
safe
here.
space.
Wolf are
Get
outside
out
the
of here,
hope
Wolf. Okay.
Yeah.
Kalista,
And-
Draven,
yeah.
and then Bard.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have Chovy's gonna pull out the Warwick mid lane that he's been practicing in solo queue secretly for 6 years.
Ignite barrier.
Faker's gonna solo kill him and then peel broccoli out of his pocket and eat it like the Ignite opening for Worlds. It's gonna be so cool.
Oh no! Actual prediction for fun picks. I have been waiting for the Echo support. I hope it makes an appearance. That's all I want.
That's a realistic hope, I'd say.
I just want to see more Zach. I'd like to see more. Not doesn't even have to be support. I think just
It's a great
if like
champion.
Lee Sin and I don't know, probably just Lee Sin, but maybe some more aggressive junglers get banned away, and you just
Diego.
like counter pick with Zach or something, like, you know, maybe. I just really
love
like to
Zach.
see it. I don't know if it'll
Yeah,
happen.
I love Zach. I love
I just think it can really mess up some lanes.
It's also like a fun flex for T1 as well because they can flex into support. Yeah, it's really awesome. Kind of like
Well,
You know, I love.
Maybe not as a flex
I love Senna actually. Senna, because then we get to maybe see Carrier play Lee again.
that's true. That Lee
I'd
Senna.
want that a lot. That
Yeah.
made me very happy.
Um,
That's not gonna happen.
Max, do you have any hopes before I wanted to segue into something?
Mine's
that,
the Warwick that Chovy's been practicing for 6
okay,
years
good,
in
good,
secret.
excellent. Officially.
Warwick
it's a
from
good
Arcane.
Yeah, no, it's I actually
Oh,
I don't really have them outside of I do kind of want Lehens to do something crazy. I don't actually care what it is.
Just something.
Something
probably
Lehensy.
will.
I just
Oh,
want
he
a
will.
Lehensy.
He might play
pick.
Seraphine again, you know.
Well, Seraphine isn't
not
that
ex- that's not
crazy.
interesting.
It's just a Renata.
Or that
so
good.
I wanna talk about like a hope that I have, and I'm not gonna jinx it. We're not gonna jinx anything.
Uh-huh.
Is that now that Genji won Game 5, they're going home to the team house, and those players will not leave the house. They will not leave the house for any reason until the finals.
God.
And they will not talk to anybody who's outside the house. They will isolate for the 7 days that are left until they get in that van and go straight to the finals without talking to anybody, with masks on, very carefully, and all 5 players will be healthy, and all T1 players who have isolated the same way all throughout the season will also show up and be healthy, and we will get the third match for real with all main rosters and all 10 players. That is my other hope, and I think it's a realistic one. I think
Is
it's
this
gonna
made of
happen.
wood?
It's going to come true.
Is this made of wood? I don't know. We must. I think it is. It hurt my knuckles, and wood would do that. So
It's definitely not wood.
crap.
It's not wood either.
Bloody floors. Is that really not wood? Is there anything made out of wood?
Maybe this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we
That
touched.
will do it.
It
I
seems
touched
like wood.
paint in a lot of different ways. That was
Good,
over the
good.
top of potentially.
I
wood.
hope you. Really hope you're right.
I hope you're right too. We do need to briefly mention what the protocol would be for that, because of course there was a change up that happened initially. Players being able to play from home whilst they tested positive to COVID-19 was not allowed. The teams actually convened and voted no. That they wanted to have substitutions instead of allowing for that to happen. The teams then reconvened with the LCK and then agreed that for playoffs it would be allowed. And so Fate, we saw actually in the Kwangdong versus T1 series, was actually playing from the Kwangdong Freaks team house. In order to deal with some of the refereeing and stuff like that, there was a camera put behind Fate so that they could see exactly what he was doing on his monitor. Like, everything was absolutely monitored, but there was no referee actually in the house, so that we weren't sacrificing their health, which I think is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
So that if there is going to be some sort of issue like that, the player can, of course, decide to say, like, I'm sick, I can't play, which I think is a very honorable decision to make, right? However, if they are positive, but the symptoms aren't too severe, they can elect to stay home, which would be absolutely devastating and extraordinarily sad, and I really hope it doesn't happen.
No.
So,
So stay home and isolate Genji players,
Yes.
please. T1's been doing a great job of that all season, and they have insane protocol for that. I think Genji, if they just emulate it, there's only a few days left. Like, please.
Hey, we can get a Ophelia, and he was great. I don't.
got
give me
great hair.
quid.
Not even.
Where my
he gets
quid
great
at?
hair. Well, hey, for T1, I'm glad it's not going to be a thing, because the challenger roster got knocked out by Nongshim, who like barely made playoffs, and they got dun-dunned.
Oh,
They
no.
got
Dun, dun,
No, it was
dun.
actually it was actually Vital 1v9ing as you.
I mean,
as you'd
Vital's
expect.
really good.
Makes sense, yeah.
He's really good. He's an OCE player.
I-
Did you guys know that?
Yeah, you've mentioned.
Have
this
I mentioned that before?
I actually, in the interest of, I don't want to waste too many words because we talked about it to death, but I was really happy to see the decision be made after the regular split, because I think it would have been very unfair to teams like Nongshim and
Yeah.
Genji as well,
Yeah,
that were
yeah.
like hit very much in the regular split, and if then retroactively the rules would have been changed, would have been unfortunate. Simultaneously, also happy that we see if now have the change in the playoffs, and that actually worked out the way. it
Also,
did.
Fate, who played isolated while he tested positive for COVID-19. I don't know exactly what his physical state was, but he said he was healthy enough. He felt good enough to play. Might have been asymptomatic. I don't know, have all the data on that.
Yeah.
But he played, and he was arguably the most impactful player.
I'd agree.
So
yeah, it didn't feel like his performance was too impacted.
no, it was
I
really
just
good.
wanted to add that because I feel like even if we do have this extremely unfortunate situation occur, there is at least a counterexample of Fate performing extremely well regardless of the circumstances. So
Yeah.
hopefully it won't impact too much if it happens. I don't think it's going to happen, but
Yeah.
just wanted to add that.
Yep. Everyone, keep your fingers crossed. Of course, the final is going to be happening likely tomorrow for you guys. For us, we just recently got out of the most insane best of 5. That's why my hair still exists. I haven't even had a chance to potentially shave it off. I don't know whether it'll be gone for the final.
Yeah, you have to think about
because
that.
Surprise.
I mean, my fiance is going to be pretty upset if I just remove my hair without properly going over and having a conversation with her and telling her that I'm going to be hideous.
I also still
for
need
like
a menu.
a
Atlas.
while.
I made a promise too. It's not as big as impactful as yours.
You're going to make me dinner? I actually don't want that to happen because it's
actively
such a pathetic promise to make.
Well,
you should have shaved your hair as well.
I'm not dumb enough to see a draft like that and say, I'll shave off my hair.
Well, I saw a lead like that, and I said I'll shave off my hair, and then I saw
It's
that
on.
lead disappear.
It's on into Renex in Italy, Atlas. But it's your Costico, so like I do feel bad for you. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Of
A little
course
bit.
I would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nah, very. But that's why I'm trying to alleviate the situation. I know that makes it worse. So I'll stop trying.
No, it's all right. Maybe I'll look okay if I'm bald. I've
just
seen some
refer to the-
photoshops.
yeah.
It's been absolutely terrifying. Probably one of the most cursed things I've ever seen on the internet
But you
was me being like photoshopped as old and then having my hair removed.
But you can just do a
Thanks,
buzz cut,
Valdes,
you
for
know?
that one.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you, Twitter.
Thanks, Twitter. And thank you for watching the Pog State this season. It's been an absolute joy. We've enjoyed absolutely every single episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you guys appreciate the fact that I still have hair for this episode, make sure you put a comment down below. If I read enough of them that get upvotes and stuff like that, maybe I'll reconsider. But it's probably still just...
Don't get your hopes up, Atlas.
Give menu suggestions, please.
For his 3-course meal, that I'm just going to be grumpy Atlas with no hair sitting
you
at the
take
dinner table like, I don't even want to eat this. It looks delicious. Is that hummus? Absolutely wonderful. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we'll see you next season for more Pog State.